coach. So the two of them work together, and if you ever go to one of their sessions, you get a touch of all kinds of things, yoga and how to eat well and how to cook well. And that's what they're going to do today, is talk to you about really highly nutritious food. Since you have smaller stomachs now, you need to make sure that what you put in there has the most nutrition in it you can get. And so that's what they're going to show us how to do a little more easily. And they'll tell you what to do with kale, because that's sort of always one of those things that you know is nutritious, but you're not quite sure how to cook it. So go right ahead.
All right. Good evening. So how many folks were here last year, just so we know? Okay, yeah, a few of you. All right. Well, good, you came back. That's a good sign. So my name is Diane, and I'm going to get our program started off. We kind of go back and forth a little bit, but in the end, you should have several different little nibbles to try, and hopefully take home at least one little new tidbit of some good information. So Chris asked us to talk about superfoods, because you hear all about these superfoods in the media, and they're usually something exotic, whether it's goji berries or the acai berries or oat bran one year or flax or something. And they're all, those things are good, but the best superfoods are actually found right in your produce aisle at the grocery store, and they're really not so exotic or not that unusual. You can find them in everyday foods with everyday cooking. So that's what we want to show you. And I'm going to start with the flavored waters that we make, because you can buy vitamin water and flavored water, Gatorade, things like that. And they may or may not have anything that's actually good for you in them, but they all cost a pretty penny. So if you make them yourself, you can make a pitcher of flavored water, put it in the fridge, and it will last for 2 days. So if just every other day you make a pitcher, or if you have a family, like my whole family will drink the flavored water, and so you drink the whole pitcher maybe in just a few hours, just fill it with water again. You don't have to refresh what's in it, it will still work. So for flavored waters, all you need to do is pick maybe a fruit and an herb or even a vegetable that you like, and put it in the base of a pitcher. So over there, I combine one herb with a couple of fruits. And you've got the suggestions on your form there. The one with the oranges in it has fennel, if you're not familiar with that, that little fluffy green thing. And fennel tastes a little bit like licorice, so it gives it a little bit of a different flavor. The other one is cucumber mint, and it has cucumbers and mint in it, but it also has a little bit of stevia leaf in it to give it just a touch of sweetness. And then what I'm going to make for you here is the tropical one. And so I sliced up a lime, actually I'm going to use about half that lime. And I'm going to put just a few little pieces of some pineapple and a couple of strawberries. You know, you can go to the salad bar and just pick up a few little pieces, so you don't have to buy a whole pineapple or a whole pound of strawberries. But what you want to do is take something to press it down. So a wooden spoon works really well. You kind of smash the fruit, and you leave the rinds on if you do any citrus. Go ahead and leave the skins on. Just smash them a little bit. It just helps to release the flavors a bit more. Now on the tropical one, it also called for coconut, and you can buy those big shreds of coconut in the bulk food aisles at like Hy-Vee or Whole Foods. They didn't have any when I went grocery shopping yesterday, so I had some coconut water in my pantry. So that's why I'm using coconut water. All it is some coconut and water, only it costs a fortune. So just buy some little shreds of coconut, and you just put them right in there. Fill it with water, let it chill for at least 30 minutes, and then you've got this great flavored water that will last a couple of days. And after the 2 days, if there's anything left, you just toss it out. Would you mind just maybe putting some ice in some water, fill this up, we'll just set it over there. By the time we're done, then you get a little taste of what the tropical one would taste like. But you can use any fruit, you can use any herbs. And I had mentioned that I put stevia in the spray back here that you can really scoop a lot out of. So I don't really buy the stevia packets, I'm not really into roast stevia, and this is what it looks like. I just cooked it from my backyard today, and you just pluck the leaves off. When we're done, if anyone wants to nibble on a leaf, you'll see just how sweet they are. Scrunch it up just a little, drop it in your drink, and you've got some sweetness. You know, it's not the same as a whole packet of sugar, but you get a little hint of sweetness, and there's no calories in it at all. And it's perfectly natural because it's just an herb. So that's a good way to help you get all of the water in that you need to drink throughout the day. If you have a couple of different flavors to choose from to offset just the regular tap water. Ooh, very good. Okay, all righty. Actually, the next little tidbit that we wanted to show you is how to make roasted cauliflower, and that is what Linda is going to do. And before you think and say, I hate cauliflower, just wait, because this is really, really good.
I think you have to finish yours.
I will finish this. You can't do two things at once. You know, older sisters are not good for anything.
Okay. So, superfoods. Cauliflower. It's pretty simple. I heard someone say, ugh, cooked cauliflower. I don't like cooked cauliflower. And Chris said, I've had it raw, I've had it steamed, and I've never had it roasted. So if you have never had cauliflower roasted, tonight's your chance, okay? What happens when you roast it? You're going to get a caramelization on the outside, yet the inside is still going to be tender. And so it might give it a little bit of a more sweety, maybe a little nutty flavor to it. So to get started, all you do is take your cauliflower and you turn it into florets, which I'm sure you all know how to do that. Break it off, and I put it in a bowl. I add 2 tablespoons of a high heat oil because you're going to be cooking it at a high heat. This is at 450 degrees. You're going to kind of cook it fast and high. And then you could just simply do salt and that's it. But we're going to add another superfood to this, which is a spice that I don't know if too many of you have heard of it, but it's called turmeric or turmeric. It's becoming more and more mainstream. It's been around for 5,000 years. It's actually a rhizome, like ginger. It's going to grow horizontally in the ground, and it's dug up, it's dried, and it's baked, and then it's ground into a powder. So there are medicinal qualities to this, and ancient years ago, 5,000 years ago or so, they used it for culinary purposes, for medicinal purposes, and then for textile. It will actually stain, so they used it as a dye also. But more and more research is coming out. It's anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and now they're saying that it's preventative towards Alzheimer's disease, because I guess it's going in there and it's cleaning out the plaque and it's doing all kinds of stuff. So we are adding it. So it's going to be oven roasted cauliflower with turmeric. And there is a synergy, there were some studies done, when you take a cruciferous vegetable, which cauliflower is a cruciferous vegetable, and you mix it with turmeric, their anti-cancer properties individually are strong, but when you combine it, it's especially strong against prostate tumor cells. In fact, some studies have shown that it has stopped it. You know, it can't grow anymore. So that's the research behind it. This is your opportunity to try it. So what I did, and I put gloves on, and you can see, if you think you haven't had turmeric, it is in everyday mustard. That's what turns it the bright yellow color. Yeah. So I put on some gloves, or you could just mix it with a spoon, and it's going to look like this. Can you see it?
Anyway, I'll be your little fan.
Oh, okay. And so I have, you spread it out on a baking sheet, and when Vanna comes back, I'm going to spread this one out because that would be the second batch. I wanted to have enough so that each one of you could try it.
Because we know you all want to taste that cauliflower.
So the reason you spread it out, I didn't want to like throw it all on one sheet. Let me get Because if you crunch it together, it would be more like steaming instead of roasting. We want to make sure that hot air hits most of the sides of the cauliflower. And I just took off my gloves, so I'm going to use a spoon. So you're just going to spread it out so the air hits it. It's going to cook for a total of about 25 minutes. You're going to turn it one time at 15 minutes. And it might take a little bit more, but that's usually not the case in the 450-degree oven. And so later you will be tasting oven roasted cauliflower. And when this comes out, I'll show it to you before we put it in a bowl. So that is the first superfood recipe that you have there.
Now, are you able to do that with Brussels sprouts and those types of things that you roast too, or is it
I've done it
too-
with broccoli before.
Yeah.
And yes, you can certainly roast Brussels sprouts. Yes, you can roast pretty much, yes, all of the vegetables like that. That's a good question. Are there any other questions about this recipe? Yes.
I've seen a recipe recently that you can take a big pan of water and bring it to a boil, put your cauliflower, even a bag of frozen cauliflower in there. You let it, bring it back to a boil, let it boil 5 minutes, rinse it in a colander, and then chop it with a mashed potato chopper, and it turns it into rice.
Very nice.
A lot of people have heard about cauliflower mashed potatoes, but
yes.
I hadn't heard about the rice.
I've heard about it, I haven't
Good.
tried, no, I haven't tried it, no, but it's on my list of things to try. Because we do a lot of the cauliflower mash, but, yeah. So you haven't tried it yet either?
Anybody tried the cauliflower rice?
Oh, who's the lady?
How is it?
It tastes like cauliflower.
Still kind of
Okay. An honest answer.
It should, it's cauliflower.
Yeah, did it make you feel like you were eating rice? You know, if you were mixing with vegetables, you just sort of pretend.
It has that.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a cruciferous vegetable, and there are a lot of cruciferous vegetables out there. There's broccoli, Brussels sprouts, the bok choy, almost all of your dark leafy greens, the mustard greens, turnips, Swiss chard, watercress, arugula. Now, something you might not think of, but radishes are. And wasabi and horseradish too. So there is quite an assortment, and it's for on your wellness journey. What you want to do is try to diversify on the number and of your vegetables and your fruits, and the more ways you can figure out how to cook, like how can you cook cauliflower, you eat a raw, you know, all of them, then you just have more choices to get these good superfoods in. Okay, any more questions about this recipe? Okay, I'll move on to recipe number 2, and that is a kale quinoa salad. And I understand some of you are intimidated with kale. Yes, I think yes. It's not that intimidating, but so there are all kinds of kale. This happens to be dinosaur, or it's also called lacinato. This is what red kale looks like, and then you've seen probably the green curly kale in the store also. So in this recipe, it's going to be raw, and it just says to chop it or cut it in thin slices. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. I'll give you my favorite way, where I just peel back a little bit of the leaf part from the stem. This is when you get sassy in the kitchen. You just hold it, you take control of that kale, you take it, and there you go, it's de-stemmed. And that's called stripping your kale. So, one more time, and that's how I did the whole batch. So, you just get enough where you can grab it, strip it. And then you would just line them up. Okay, so now I'll show you the other way, although you won't really be able to see because the tables are kind of low. You just simply do a V cut, and you would cut out your stem. So you just run your knife, along that thick stem, kind of grab it, and then you've done the same thing. So then, what I would do is I stacked them up, I rolled them like a big fat cigar, and then you just cut little slices. And you can chop them to your desired length, whatever you want. that's it.
The stem, is that, taste funny or is it plain?
No, they are edible. They are edible. What I would do is chop it up in thinner pieces and then probably cook it, throw it in something I'm cooking. So especially when you spend the money and you buy organic, and you want to use every piece of the whole food you can. Yeah, I use the stems. I do. I might tuck them in something where they're not real obvious. So that's the kale part, superfood part of the salad. Quinoa. This might be another one that you haven't heard or you've heard about. For culinary purposes, people think of it as a grain. It is a seed. And it's another one that's been around a long time. Oh, Dana, would you check this and see? It could go another 5 minutes if it doesn't work all the way right. Can you show them what that's looking like?
There you go, and I think it needs, see, it's not terribly brown on the top, it's just barely
5
starting
more
brown,
minutes.
so I'm thinking a little bit longer.
5 more minutes. So quinoa
Still looks like cauliflower.
is quinoa is a seed. The unique thing about quinoa is that it is a complete protein. So there are very few non-animal complete proteins. This is it. Another unique feature about it is it cooks pretty fast. It's 15 minutes. And you do it just like rice. But here's a lesson if you haven't done this before. Now this one is pre-rinsed, okay? But if you buy it from the bulk bin, it might not be. Make sure you rinse it because it has a natural coating on it, which is actually like its own natural pesticide called saponins, and it's kind of a bitter. So you rinse it. So I would just measure what I want, put it in a fine mesh strainer, and it should be fine, or else you're going to have this lovely quinoa going down the drain because it is a tiny little seed. I'll show you what that looks like if you can see this. See how tiny that is? Now if you used a regular strainer, that's going to go through. So then you just put it under your cold running water, and you can either take your hands and kind of just gently rub it, or take the spoon and wash it until it runs clear. Then you just put it into your pan, same ratio as rice, 1 cup quinoa, 2 waters. You bring it up to a boil, and then, now this is a foodie tip if you try this. To prevent the moisture, because I have a cooktop that is glass and ceramic, and so you lift off the lid and all the water runs every place. Here's a little foodie trick. Just take a paper towel. I did this when I cooked the quinoa. And once it starts to boil and you turn the heat down, you put that over, then put your lid on it like this and let it cook. And then you just take it off the heat for 5 minutes, and when you open it up, all the water is in the paper towel and you don't have it going all over the place. So, foodie tip of the house. So, we've got quinoa, we've got kale, and then the colors, the other things that are in this salad, I don't need to show you how to chop celery or carrot, but these are all anti-inflammatories too. Every single ingredient here, the quinoa is anti-inflammatory. It also has the healthy fats in it because it's a seed, which means you should also store it carefully too. You don't put it somewhere by your stove. Put it in a cool place, put it in your pantry. I actually keep mine in the refrigerator. Anti-inflammatory, the kale, you might be talking about your greens.
Yeah.
Okay, but anti-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory. The parsley that's in it is the same thing. It's gonna neutralize carcinogens in your body. Lemon, think of it this way. Lemon is like Lysol in your body. It is that cleansing. So, and then garlic. We all know garlic is anti-inflammatory. It's good for cardiovascular, lowers your cholesterol. There's nothing bad about
Everybody
garlic.
around you run away.
Keeps people away from you.
Booster too, because everyone runs from you, so you don't catch colds.
So for the sake of time, I prepared this salad today. And I mean, just look at how beautiful the colors are. And so that's what you're going to be sampling tonight. The dressing was just simply olive oil and lemon juice, and put a little bit of tamari in it. And you could use soy sauce. Tamari just happens to be a wheat-free version of soy. So anyone with a gluten sensitivity or celiac disease, quinoa is a gluten-free grain, so to speak. And then the tamari would be gluten-free also. So if there's any sensitivities, this is a perfect dish for those folks. So you will be tasting this. And it's pretty simple to put together. Diane, how dare you go?
Maybe one more minutes.
That's pretty good. See,
You like it?
it's starting to
So this is how we want
caramelize.
it. Yeah, the little brown spots up there. Do you think that's good enough?
Now, see, I like that, but if you, okay. I'm gonna turn the,
I'll get the next one in.
that'd be great, and my throat's growing out, so it's gonna turn out tall.
Okay, so I'm going to cover greens, and what I'd like to say about greens is that they are the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. And then of greens, herbs are the most nutrient-dense green. So I have lots of greens here for you tonight. And so in case you're not familiar with how to take care of greens or how to prepare them, you go to the grocery store and you buy this big bag of greens. It's like, am I ever going to eat all of this? Well, the easiest way to keep your greens fresh is to bring them home and then just get a big bowl of water or just underneath the sink, get them rinsed off good. Just do it all right when you get home because there will be a lot of greens and you won't want to, but it'll pay off in the long run. So you just get them rinsed off. Take a tea towel, or you can use either thin tea towels, or you can also use like any type of a thin cloth. Even pillowcases work good, and that's what I've got here today. So you get a nice damp tea towel or pillow cloth, tablecloth, pillow top. See how I've laid out my greens on this damp cloth, and then I just rolled it up like a jelly roll, and I put that in my refrigerator. Because we eat a lot of greens, so those two little bins that are in the fridge, they fill up really quick with stuff. So I can put it in just like this, or if I really want it to last like till next week, I'll put a little bag that it comes in from the grocery store, just loose, and set it in the refrigerator. This will keep your greens nice and fresh and crispy for usually about 10 days. So since you don't eat a lot of food and you usually buy greens in a batch, this way you just buy the batch of greens, wash them all up, roll them out, and then when you're ready, you just take a leaf or two or whatever you need, and it makes it so much easier to fix your meal very quickly that way. Now, if you want to have a variety of ways to eat greens, you can, of course, just eat them raw. Even kale you can eat raw, even though it's pretty tough. Linda showed you how you could just slice it up. You can also massage it. After you slice it, she's got this little slice. So if I were to slice a big batch of kale, I could sprinkle just a little salt on it and then massage it. Just scrunch it up. You would massage it for about a minute or so if you had a whole bowl of it. And it will turn darker in color, and it'll start to smell a little funny. And it's because it's releasing the bitterness. So if you've ever tried kale and thought it was too bitter, try massaging it first. Tiny little bit of salt, and just scrunch it and scrunch it and scrunch it. If you're only doing a handful, you just keep squeezing it. It could be like a stress ball. Squeeze my kale to get rid of my stress. And then you've got it for a salad. You can put whatever dressing on it or mix it with whatever other vegetables that you'd like to have. Another way that you can prepare greens would be to blanch them or steam them. So like I have some collard greens, and some people think collard greens are kind of tough. And so I blanched a few of them. Let's see, I have one that's not blanched. So when I bought my collard greens at the store, and see I have them in the wrapper and nice and crispy because I've got them wrapped up with the coolness of the cloth. And these I've blanched. So now it's kind of floppy, but it's very pliable, so I can do a lot of good things with it.
What's the difference between blanching and steaming?
Blanching is quicker. Blanching, I dunk this into some boiling water for about 30 seconds, and that's it. So I don't want to fully cook it, I just want to sort of like half cook it. So it just makes it more pliable, a little easier to chew, but it's not quite as soft as if it's fully cooked. So you could steam your greens. In fact, some of the greens are even more nutritious when you steam them. Of course, all the greens are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, pretty much anti-everything. So greens are wonderful altogether. And your dark leafy greens don't just have to be spinach, although spinach is one, or kale, or collards. Like I've got some Chinese cabbage, this is actually one of the newest superfoods for this year. Chinese cabbage that I got at the farmer's market. And then don't forget about just good old romaine lettuce. It's a dark leafy green also. The only green that's really not that great is the iceberg lettuce. There's just not a lot in it. There's not a lot of calories in it, so in that respect it's good, but it's not as nutritious as the darker greens. The darker the color, the more vibrant the color, the more nutrients you'll find in it. And then of course of the greens, the herbs are going to be the most nutritious of all. So what I'm going to make is an herbed pesto. So I hear a lot of you eat chicken, and you eat a lot of chicken, and you get bored with it. So I'm making a pesto that you can maybe drizzle on your chicken or on your veggies, or do a variety of things with to jazz up any of those foods. So I'm going to use basil, about a cup of basil. So I'm just going to pick off about a cup's worth of the leaves. And I'm actually going to do half basil and half spinach tonight to make it a little more mild. Some people find basil to be a little bit strong, but I love it. But for newer people to pesto, I usually start with a half spinach, half basil. You can do all spinach if you want less intensity in the flavor. You can also use other herbs as well. You can use cilantro or parsley to make a variety of herbed pesto. So I have about a cup of basil leaves, and I'm going to use my food processor, but you could also use a blender. I'm going to put about a cup of spinach in there. And I measure really exact. It's just so important to be super exact there. And then I need to add, some nuts and garlic. So for the nuts tonight, I use walnuts. Traditional pesto calls for pine nuts, but walnuts are just a little better on the nutrition scale. You could also use pistachios. You can use seeds. You can use hemp seeds. Hemp seeds are really high in protein, and they're a great addition. Although I'm going to use hemp in another way here on the pesto. So about a third of a cup of whatever type of nut you choose. So that's going to get your good healthy fats and your vitamin E. And then let's see, 1 or 2 cloves of garlic. And I got 1 clove and it's like huge. So I'm probably just going to use half of that. The easiest way to get my garlic out is I'm just going to smash it with my knife. Maybe you can hear that smashing. And then just quite easily peel off the papery part, or it would if I wasn't wearing gloves. So since this is so big, I'm only going to throw in maybe half of this. And this is really interesting with gloves on, how to get this going. But at some point, I really am going to put my garlic in without the peel on it. And then after that, we're going to add some lemon juice. Linda, would you mind squeezing some lemon here? Because it might be like another hour for me to get this paper off. It usually comes off quite easily. Oh, no, there we go. So I have a couple of little lemon quarters. And actually, never mind, I don't need you now.
Yeah.
So I've got the first few ingredients in. And I'm just going to put my little lid on the food processor and pulse it a few times. Just so it's kind of a little bit more coarsely ground, and mostly I'm just kind of getting it to sink down so I have more room. Then I'll add the rest of my ingredients here. So what it looks like right now, basically, is just a bunch of chopped leaves. Little lawnmower-ish, as my husband would say. So from here, I am going to add some lemon juice, 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So it's about 1. I got a tiny little seed in there. You don't really want the lemon seed. If you have a citrus press, that works really nice. And I've got one sitting on my counter at home that I forgot to pack. So here's that second little tablespoon and 1 more seed that I'm gonna remove. And then my secret ingredient for this is nutritional yeast flakes. Has anyone ever heard of nutritional yeast? Oh, good. New to you. Well, it's not to be confused with any other type of yeast, baker's yeast, brewer's yeast, any of those. It's actually nutritional yeast flakes. And they are one of the latest and greatest superfoods. This is actually a complete protein, so it's going to add some protein to your pesto. It has a cheesy, kind of nutty flavor, so it takes the place of cheese, which is loaded with saturated fats, and this is not. This only has 1 gram of fat in a serving. So 1 serving, which is 2 tablespoons, has 8 grams of protein in this. And I think 5 grams of fiber, 4 grams of fiber, 1 gram of fat. It has your B vitamin complex and lots of trace minerals, as well as being a complete protein. So it's a pretty fun little ingredient. And if you use it in place of cheese, then it makes the pesto dairy-free, in case any of you are looking for dairy-free alternatives. In a traditional pesto, you would use some cheese rather than this. You would use some Parmesan cheese. But I'm going to use some nutritional yeast flakes. These just dried up little things. You can even come take a pinch when we're done of just what's left if you want to taste it. It has a taste that grows on you. I call it kind of a Cheez-It kind of flavor. But the first time I tasted it, it was like, oh, okay. But then after a while, it's like, I really like it. It's a nice alternative to cheese. All right, and then we're going to add a half a teaspoon of salt, more or less to taste. And I typically use sea salt. It's not a big deal to use the Morton's table salt, but sea salt just has a few little trace minerals added in, not added in. Morton's table salt is refined, so they've taken out all of what the Morton's people would call impurities, which are actually the other trace minerals that go along with sodium, and the sea salt is still in there. So if you buy sea salt, you'll notice it's not white, it's kind of a pinkish hue, and there's little specks in it, so you might think it's dirty, but it's not. Those are the other minerals that are in it, the other trace minerals. So I'm going to put half a teaspoon in here. And the recipe calls for 1/3 of a cup of olive oil, and I'll put about 1/4 cup. I usually cut it down just a bit. I've also made it to where it's half oil and half water if you want to thin it. So that if you're watching, you've already had your oil for the day, and yet you still want to make some pesto. You can even do it with all water, but it changes the texture. It's still good flavor, but it changes the texture. But you can sub half water and half oil if you prefer. Let's see, I will measure this. I don't want to put too much oil in there. So, well, actually, it calls for the 1/3, and I'm just going to do the 4th. The judicious use of good quality oils is what we go for. Not overusing them, but not totally neglecting the benefits. And I use olive oil, which is high in the omega-9s, which are important. So we'll finish pulsing this. And then voila, you've got your pesto. So pesto can be used as a dip. You can mix it with a little plain yogurt and have it be a creamy dip. It's a great spread. Or it can be eaten on crackers, on veggies, on chicken. It's fabulous on chicken. It makes it a lot tastier. So what I'm going to do is use the pesto on some of the greens that I've got. So what I've taken also is I just bought a roasted chicken, and I shredded it and put some carrot and cucumber with it. So typical things you might find in your fridge as leftovers. So that's the whole point of this, is you can use your leftovers to make lunch for the next day. So I'm going to take one of my greens. I'll just start with something nice and easy like a romaine leaf. You can make it into, basically into a taco. I'm going to take a little of my pesto spread, just about a teaspoon or so. Smear it on the green. And then add my leftovers, whether it's the chicken mix, just veggies. You could add the quinoa salad. You could fill one in there. Roll it up, and you've got a sandwich without any bread. Now I'll wrap these in a little plastic wrap and be able to take them to work, and they just look like those wraps that you can buy in the grocery store, only it's total nutrition. There's no filler. Everything is very nutrient dense here. And that's what I made the collard greens for as well, when I blanched them to make them a little easier. These work as a great burrito shell. Now I am going to get rid of the stem, and I'm going to just fillet it, like Linda showed you, to just slide the knife down the stem to get rid of it. Pluck that stem off, and you just, there's the little shred of my garlic. And you just overlap where the space that you've, that little cut that you've made. And then once again, you just smear a little of your pesto. If you're not really into pesto, you could smear one little slice of an avocado. If you mash it up, it's really nice and creamy and gives you that little bit of fat that adds to the texture and the taste. And a couple of tablespoons of my little leftover mixture. And then I'm going to wrap it all up. Again, you can put it in some plastic wrap, and you've got your little sandwich wrap without using any bread. You can also just dunk your veggies or your meat into the pesto. So I've got some here that I'll set over there. If you want to dunk a little piece of chicken in, or I'd actually blanch the carrots in case some of you are still having trouble with purely raw vegetables. The carrots will be a little bit softer because they're blanched. We can dunk them in there. Now if you want a little more zip to your meals, there is one more little item that I put on there. It's kind of an extra. It's called an herb crumble, and I'm just going to show you. So herbs pack a big punch. A teaspoon of herbs is going to give you lots and lots of good nutrient dense flavor to add. And so what I've combined here, I chopped up some parsley, so just got some rare parsley, and thyme. I didn't bring any thyme from the garden. And what's the other one? Anybody have it on there? If anyone can read it. Oh, I use mint. Parsley, mint, and thyme is what I put in there. And then it calls for a little garlic as well. So if the pesto isn't quite zippy enough, you just take a little spoonful of this, and it's meant to be a kind of powdery, and you would just take a pinch if it was just you. So it's just all little leaves that are chopped up with the garlic and with a lemon zest, the zest of one lemon. And a little pinch of this on your sandwich, your wrap, on your veggies, on your meat. You just liven it up, and you won't notice that you're no longer using things like mayonnaise or lots of fats on it. You'll have so much flavor with the herbs. And then meanwhile, you'll just get so much more energy because of the nutrient-dense greens that you're eating. The greens are like eating sunshine, I think. They are just so filled with energizing nutrients. So we like greens. So we have lots of things for you to taste. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add? And then we're open for questions.
Actually, that was one of the things I was going to say, that my throat dried up, so I couldn't ask if there were any questions on kale or quinoa or, yes, Marcia?
I don't have this problem, but I know many people have problems digesting greens or, some of the leafier, the leafier things. Do you see that when you kind of make them less dense, that helps,
The
or?
cooking will help.
Right.
Yeah, because it's sort of breaking apart the fibers a little more so that your body doesn't have to do that as much. So definitely, if you're brand new to greens, start, yes, with the cooked, the steamed, work your way up to eventually eating them raw.
Right, that's from a GI nerd, gastrointestinal.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Other questions, just fire them away. I'm gonna make a few more wraps here.
I saw the other day on a video that when they clean the greens, they add a little bit of vinegar to help with bacteria or something, especially with organic greens.
Oh, interesting, because I'll wash, if I don't buy organic, I wash my produce with a little vinegar water. But if I buy organic, I just wash it good with tap water. So I'll have to. So did you read that, that it was the other way around?
I thought they said with organic especially.
Okay,
Because they have
interesting.
some kind of film on them or something.
Okay, I'll have to check into that, yeah, because I just did it the exact opposite. Have you heard?
No, I've always been taught to rinse our greens well. And the vinegar, I have read that it will kill parasites if there are parasites.
A lot of the veggie washes and stuff have the acidic.
It's probably
Yeah.
just vinegar and water and
Yeah.
veggie washes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You cook your grapes, and your grapes last like 3 times as long.
Yes, and your berries and stuff like that, so yes. Any more questions? Are you a little bit hungry? Are you ready to try some foods? The cauliflower is almost done. But I'm gonna go ahead and start putting some of this on the table.
Alrighty.
And we'll just start, this will be the sampling table over here. You can just come up and help yourself.
And
I have maybe a dumb question.
oh no, we like all questions.
The hemp,
Oh,
Is that
I forgot
right?
to put the protein
marijuana hemp, so if you
Right,
do
and then
that,
you
would
get high
you
with it.
tested for
Oh,
marijuana?
okay, tell, what was the question again?
Hemp seed.
Hemp seed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're going to test high, but don't expect to get high. It's not quite the same strain, I think, is how they,
I don't think it has the THC.
how they put it.
Yeah.
What I meant to put in the pesto, and it was a little scoop of protein powder for those of you that want to bump up your protein content for the day even more than with the nutritional yeast. And any unflavored protein powder works. I mean, don't put the vanilla or the chocolate in, that would kind of be yucky. But if it's unflavored, you could. And so what I'll use sometimes is the hemp protein powder. Now it's green, but it works well if you're making something green. And you can come up and take a little whiff of it, but it's just a natural protein powder. So it's made from hemp seeds, basically ground up hemp seeds. So you can just take a little whiff of that. And when you're making the pesto, feel free to put a little scoop in. If you're like, oh, I haven't gotten enough protein today, you can get a little extra that way.
Is it unflavored as well?
It is unflavored, but because it's hemp, it tastes like greens. So I would put it in like something like a pesto or any green dip that I would make, or a green smoothie. I wouldn't put it in if I was having like milk, to make it like milk and strawberries or something. I wouldn't put it in something like that. But if I was going to make my protein drink out of some greens and a little water and then a scoop of this, that would be fine. You're not going to taste any difference. Yeah. Other questions?
Where are you getting your seasoning, your herbs, like the turmeric from the yummy? There are some that are so fine that you're not getting the nutrients that you need.
Right.
It's like those are sort of, so where are you getting those?
I like this spice company. It's in Old Overland Park called Penzies.
Where?
Penzies is what it's called. It's about 80, it's right off of the main.
Santa Fe.
Yes, Santa Fe.
And it's
And,
close to tasteful.
they've got a real good
Oh,
reputation.
yes. We should talk
And
about that too.
I buy them in bulk, you know, like this is how the turmeric comes, powdered ginger, powdered garlic, you know, and then I have glass containers and then I just keep filling them up because I do use a lot of spices, but that's probably the best place I know of. Yeah, they do my meal too.
In addition to that, and I'm a restaurant here, so I use a lot of spices. Also planters down in City Market is also very good.
I've heard of someplace down in the city market that has some really.
And they've been around
quality.
probably 60, 70 years, and they do all kinds, and they're very good, high quality, and it's planters.
And just something that just triggered my mind on turmeric, you know, turmeric is in almost all curry powders that you buy, but you don't know how much. Sometimes there's just a little bit of the turmeric in the curry powder. So curry powder is still good, don't misunderstand me, but this is better if you can use the straight turmeric. Anybody take anything, some tips with them for tonight? You gonna try anything new?
Or some tips that you can share with us. We can learn something new.
That's right.
I think it would be fun to try it, but I don't know if my family would, and then I'd have this bowl with 100 servings.
Oh, on the pesto, one of the things you can do when you make it is fill, or just put it in some little Dixie cups, put a piece of plastic in, put a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons is a serving, in a Dixie cup, line them up in your freezer, and then when they're frozen, just toss them in one big, bag and zip them. They'll stay for months. Or ice cube trays. The only thing with the ice cube tray is that when you go back to making ice with it, your ice will taste like pesto. So, which is why I eventually switched to Dixie cups, to keep the family happy. So, but any little containers like that, and then you've made it, and you've got, from one batch of pesto, you have probably 8 servings. And like I say, I will freeze it at the end of the season. I'll take all my pesto or all my basil out of the garden and make it, and it lasts me till the next summer. So I've left it in my freezer for 8 months.
I use a lot of kale, but I find that even like when I put kale and like apple or something together and do a smoothie or something, the kale is definitely
Is it just too much?
the prominent flavor. Is there anything else that you add to it to kind of bring that down a little bit? I mean, I don't mind it, I like kale, but it's just very prominent.
I would try massaging it and then rinsing it after I massaged it, just to get that last little bit of bitterness off, and then try that and see if it helps. My other trick is just to mix it with the sweeter fruits, which I know you have to watch the sugars there, but it works really well, with the pineapple and grapes and things like that.
Yeah, it will.
Because the sweet will counteract the bitter. And then eventually you kind of get used to the bitterness and then you don't notice it as much. But yeah, when you're first starting out, massaging it, rinsing it, just to get rid of that last little bit of the bitterness.
Steaming helps too.
Well, I'm talking about like in a shake.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
okay.
and it just
Oh, yeah.
kind of,
Okay.
it seems to be the prominent,
Yeah. You say if you steam it and add some like balsamic vinegar.
Okay, it's right that way.
That goes. So this is what it looks like now. This is nice and hot, and I stuck the first one in, and we're gonna get it hot again too, so you enjoy it.
And if you wouldn't mind, you'll just get my little things over there too, and we'll let them get to seasoning. There's
You want some help?
the pesto, and got this little tray. Let's see, this tray and that tray over there, and I'll keep working on this. So you can go ahead and start sampling. I'm gonna make up a few more of these little burrito wraps. Sandwich wraps there for you to try. And then I'll bring them on over.